Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to another episode of Learn English with Podcast Conversation. I'm Jennifer, and as always, I'm so excited to guide you through today's discussion.
And I'm Thomas. In today's episode, we'll be mastering the fine art of small talk, something that plays such a huge role in everyday communication, but often goes unnoticed. Whether you're at a social event, work, or even just passing someone in the hall, small talk is a valuable skill.
You're absolutely right. Many learners focus on formal or structured conversations, but mastering casual, everyday chit-chat is just as important, maybe even more so. It's what helps you make connections, maintain relationships, and navigate social situations with ease.
And for those of you tuning in to improve your English, listening to these conversations is a fantastic way to pick up natural language cues, expand your vocabulary, and most importantly, improve your communication skills. So, keep listening, practice, and notice how these examples can help you in real-life conversations. Exactly. So, we're here to guide you through various scenarios where small talk happens naturally. We'll discuss how to start these conversations, how to keep them going, and how to exit gracefully. Plus, you'll hear common phrases and tips to make you sound more fluent. Let's jump right in with our first example. Picture yourself at a coffee shop. Great idea. I'll be the one starting the conversation, and Jennifer will respond. Let's see how this works. Hi there. Mind if I join you at this table? It's a little crowded in here today.
Sure, no problem at all. It's nice to have some company in a busy place like this. How's your day going so far?
Pretty good, actually. I've just wrapped up a meeting that went really well, so I decided to take a quick break. How about you? Anything exciting happening today?
Oh, that's great to hear. My day's been pretty productive so far too. I'm just catching up on some emails before meeting a friend for lunch later. We're planning to try out that new Italian restaurant downtown. Have you been?
I haven't been yet, but I've heard some fantastic things about it. Do you have any recommendations? I'm a big fan of Italian food, but I never know what to try first.
Same here. I've heard their pasta is a must-try, and their tiramisu is to die for. I'll definitely report back on how it goes. Are you into Italian cuisine as well?
Absolutely. I love it. Especially homemade pasta. It's hard to beat. I might just have to give that place a try soon. Thanks for the suggestion.
You're welcome. Let me know how it goes when you do. It's always fun to share food recommendations. As you just heard, starting with simple, light topics like food is a great way to warm up the conversation. But from there, you can naturally shift to deeper topics without feeling awkward. It's about building rapport.
Exactly. Let's say after chatting about restaurants, I could ask something like, "So, what do you enjoy doing outside of work?" This opens up the opportunity for a more personal connection, and it lets the other person talk about their hobbies or interests.
Yes, and that shift feels natural because you're not diving too deep too quickly. People usually enjoy talking about what they're passionate about, so it's a good way to keep the conversation flowing. You can build on what's already been shared and go from there.
Right, and you might find out you have something in common, whether it's a love for a particular cuisine, a shared hobby, or even a similar opinion on current events. When you find that common ground, it becomes easier to maintain the conversation.
Also, asking open-ended questions is key here. Instead of just asking, "Do you like Italian food?" you can ask, "What's your favorite kind of food?" This invites a more detailed response and gives the other person a chance to share more.
Great point, Jennifer. Open-ended questions help move the conversation forward and make it more engaging. Plus, they show that you're genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. All right, let's move on to some of the most common topics for small talk. If you're not sure how to start a conversation, these subjects are a safe bet.
Yes, the weather is a classic one, and it works in almost every situation. For example, you could say something like, "Wow, it's such a beautiful day today." It's an easy, neutral way to start a conversation with a stranger or even someone you know casually.
Exactly. And when the weather isn't so nice, it works just as well. You can say something like, "I can't believe how much it's raining today." Or, "This cold weather makes me miss summer." It's something everyone can relate to.
Another common topic is travel. You can ask, "Have you been on any trips lately?" Or, "Do you have any upcoming vacation plans?" Travel is something most people love to talk about, and it can lead to interesting stories.
Yes, and you can also ask about weekend plans or how someone's week is going. Simple things like, "How's your week been?" Or, "Got any fun plans for the weekend?" These types of questions are non-intrusive and give the person room to share whatever they feel comfortable with.
And if the conversation slows down, you can always go back to safe topics like hobbies, sports, or even entertainment. For example, have you seen any good movies lately, or are you into any TV shows? These questions can keep things light and fun. Now, let's talk about something that's just as important as the words you say, your tone, and body language. Even if you're saying all the right things, the way you present yourself can either invite conversation or make people feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. For instance, if you ask someone how they're doing but sound uninterested or distracted, they'll pick up on that and the conversation might not go very far. A friendly, genuine tone goes a long way.
And it's not just about how you sound. Your body language plays a big part too. Smiling, making eye contact, and having open body posture, these things show that you're approachable and interested in what the other person has to say. Right, crossing your arms, looking away, or fidgeting too much can make you seem closed off, even if you don't mean to. So being mindful of how you carry yourself is key to making small talk work. It's all about making the other person feel comfortable and at ease. And when you do that, the conversation will flow much more naturally. Okay, let's set the scene again. You're at work, maybe near the coffee machine, and you want to strike up a conversation with a colleague. How can you keep it casual and light but still meaningful?
Great scenario. You could start with something simple like, "Hey, how's everything going with your latest project?" Or, "Busy day ahead." These kinds of questions are work-related but not too formal.
Right, and that opens the door for the person to share a little bit about their workload or even how they're feeling about the day. You could follow up with something like, "I know the feeling. It's been a hectic week on my end too." That way, you're showing empathy and connection.
Exactly. From there, you could gently steer the conversation away from work by asking something like, "So, what do you usually do to relax after a long day like today?" It's a good way to keep the conversation flowing and not let it get too serious.
Yes, it's important to balance work talk with lighter, more personal topics. It helps to create a more relaxed atmosphere, even in a professional setting.
And when you talk about non-work topics in the office, it helps build camaraderie. You can get to know your colleagues better, and that makes future conversations easier and more comfortable. Let's move on to a slightly different scenario, making small talk with someone you don't know very well, like at a social event. This can be tricky because you might not know what interests them.
Right, in this situation, it's best to stick with neutral, light topics to break the ice. You could start by commenting on the event itself, like, "The setup here is really nice, isn't it? Or have you tried the appetizers? They're delicious." These are easy ways to start a conversation without diving too deep too quickly.
Exactly. Once you get a feel for their reaction, you can introduce more engaging questions. Something like, "What brought you here today?" Or, "Do you come to these events often?" It keeps the conversation going and helps you learn more about the person.
From there, you can follow up with questions that relate to their answers. For example, if they say they came with a friend, you could ask, "How do you know each other?" Or if they mention something about work, you could ask more about their job. The key is to be genuinely interested in their answers and keep the conversation light. People respond well to curiosity, especially when it feels authentic. And remember, don't feel pressured to keep the conversation going forever. Sometimes it's okay to have a short chat and then move on to another activity or conversation. Another great way to start small talk is by discussing current events. But this can be a bit tricky since some topics can be sensitive or divisive.
Right. You want to avoid topics that are too controversial, especially if you're speaking with someone you don't know very well. Safe topics like local events, new movies, or even technology updates are a good bet.
Exactly. For example, you could say, "Did you hear about the new movie that's coming out this weekend?" Or, "I just read about a new app that's supposed to make organizing your day easier." These are interesting, but not too personal.
And from there, if the person seems interested, you can dive deeper into the conversation. Ask follow-up questions like, "What kind of movies do you enjoy?" Or, "Do you use a lot of apps to stay organized?" It shows you're engaged in the conversation and not just making small talk for the sake of it.
Yes, and it's important to listen carefully to their responses. That way, you can steer the conversation in a direction that feels natural and comfortable for both of you.
Now, let's talk about something that many people find challenging keeping the conversation going once it's started. Sometimes small talk can feel a bit awkward, and you might worry about it coming to an abrupt stop.
That's true. One good trick is to always ask open-ended questions. These are questions that can't be answered with just a yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" ask, "What did you do over the weekend?" This invites a longer response.
Exactly. Another tip is to share something about yourself that relates to what the other person said. For instance, if they mention going to the beach, you could say, "I love the beach too. I try to go as often as I can. Do you have a favorite beach?" This keeps the conversation balanced and shows that you're interested in what they have to say.
And don't forget to be an active listener. People appreciate when you pay attention to what they're saying. Nod, smile, and respond with comments that show you're engaged.
Yes, listening is just as important as speaking in a conversation. It helps create a more meaningful exchange, even when it's just small talk.
All right, let's discuss another important aspect of small talk: how to end it gracefully. It's just as important to know when and how to wrap up a conversation, especially if you feel it's run its course. Exactly. One way to do this is to say something like, "It was great chatting with you. I need to get back to work, but let's catch up again soon." This signals that you're ending the conversation, but leaves the door open for future interactions. Yes, or you can say, "I've really enjoyed this conversation, but I need to head out now. Let's talk again soon." It's polite and leaves the other person feeling positive about the interaction.
And remember, it's perfectly fine to keep small talk short. The goal is to build connections, not to have long, drawn-out conversations all the time.
Now, let's move on to a common situation making small talk at a social event, like a party or a gathering. It can feel a bit intimidating, especially when you don't know many people there.
Absolutely. The key is to start with something light and relevant to the event. You could say something like, "Wow, the decorations here are amazing, aren't they?" Or, "This place has such a great atmosphere." This shows that you're observant and invites the other person to comment.
Exactly. Then, once the conversation starts, you can ask more personal questions like, "How do you know the host?" Or, "Have you been to this event before?" These questions are open-ended and give the other person room to share more about themselves.
And if the conversation flows well, you can shift topics. Maybe ask about hobbies or weekend plans. The simple, "What do you like to do for fun?" can open up a lot of interesting directions, and people usually enjoy talking about their passions.
Yes, and don't forget to match the energy of the event. If it's a casual party, keep your tone light and fun. If it's a more formal gathering, you might want to keep things polite and neutral.
And remember, everyone at social gatherings feels a bit awkward sometimes. So if you're nervous about making small talk, know that the other person probably appreciates your effort just as much.
One of my favorite small talk topics is hobbies and personal interests. It's such a great way to get to know someone better, and it's something most people enjoy talking about.
Exactly. You could start by asking something simple like, "Do you have any hobbies?" Or "What do you like to do in your free time?" This gives the other person a chance to talk about something they're passionate about, which usually leads to a more engaging conversation.
Yes, and if they mention a hobby, you can follow up by asking more specific questions. For example, if they say they enjoy reading, you could ask, "What's the best book you've read recently?" Or "What kind of books do you usually like to read?" It shows genuine interest.
That's a great point. It's important to ask questions that show you're truly curious about their answers. People love to talk about the things they care about, and it helps build rapport.
And don't be afraid to share your own hobbies too. Small talk is about finding common ground, so if you have similar interests, it makes the conversation flow more naturally.
Exactly. You could say something like, "I'm really into hiking as well. Do you have any favorite trails?" It's a way to deepen the connection and keep the conversation going. Another great time for small talk is when you're traveling, especially if you're in a situation like a long flight or a shared bus ride. People are often open to conversation during these times because they're passing the time.
Yes, and travel provides a lot of easy topics to discuss. You could start with something simple like, "Is this your first time visiting this city?" Or "Where are you headed?" It's relevant to the situation and doesn't feel forced.
And if they seem interested in continuing the conversation, you can ask more about their travel experiences. "What's been your favorite place to visit so far?" Or "Do you travel often?" These kinds of questions allow for a lot of storytelling, which makes for a fun conversation.
Exactly. And it also gives you a chance to share your own experiences. If they mention a destination you've been to, you could say, "I visited there last year." "Did you try the local food?" It creates a connection through shared experiences.
And when traveling, it's especially important to keep the conversation positive. People are usually excited about their trip, so focusing on the highlights helps maintain a cheerful, engaging conversation.
Yes, and it's also a good way to pass the time during long trips. A friendly conversation can make the journey more enjoyable for both of you. Let's talk about making small talk with neighbors. It's one of those situations where regular short conversations can help build a sense of community.
Exactly. Starting with something as simple as, "Hi, how's it going?" when you pass them can gradually lead to longer conversations. Over time, you can start asking more about their day or their plans for the weekend.
Yes, and seasonal topics work great here too. You could say, "The weather's been so nice lately, hasn't it?" Or "Are you doing anything fun for the holidays?" It keeps things light and helps you get to know them little by little.
That's a great point. Keeping the conversation relevant to your shared environment, like commenting on the neighborhood or recent changes, makes it more natural.
And it's also about consistency. Even if the conversations are short, regularly saying hello can create a friendly atmosphere, making it easier to have longer chats when the time is right.
Yes, and these small interactions can build trust over time. It makes your living environment more comfortable and connected, which is always a plus.
One thing that can happen during small talk is awkward silences. It's something that makes people feel nervous, but it's really not as big of a deal as we think.
Exactly. A lot of people worrying about these silences, but they're actually quite normal. If you find yourself in one, just take a deep breath and don't panic. Sometimes, silence gives the other person a chance to think or relax, right? And when you're ready to move forward, you can change the topic or ask a new question. Something like, "So, what do you like to do on weekends?" Or, "By the way, have you seen any good movies lately?" Helps to smoothly restart the conversation.
It's also helpful to have a few go-to topics in mind in case of these moments. Things like current events, popular culture, or even food and travel are usually safe baits.
Yes, and if the conversation naturally comes to an end, that's okay too. Small talk doesn't always have to last forever. It's perfectly fine to have a short, polite chat and then say something like, "Well, it was great talking to you. Have a good day."
Exactly. The goal is to keep the conversation positive and leave both people feeling good, whether it's for a few minutes or a longer exchange. Let's discuss making small talk in the workplace, which can be a bit tricky since you want to maintain professionalism while still being friendly. Starting conversations with coworkers can really improve your working relationships.
Absolutely, and one effective way to start is by commenting on work-related topics. For example, you might say, "Did you catch that meeting earlier? I thought the new project plan was interesting." This not only opens the door to discussion, but also keeps it relevant to your shared work environment.
Exactly, and even casual topics like coffee breaks or lunch plans can lead to great conversations. You could ask, "Have you tried the new cafe down the street?" This gives your coworker an opportunity to share their experiences and preferences.
And it's important to balance work talk with personal touches. You can ask about weekend plans or even their favorite shows. Something like "Any plans for the weekend?" gives a personal flavor to your interactions and shows you care about them beyond just work.
Right, and when discussing personal interests, be attentive to their responses. If they mention a hobby, like gardening, you could say, "That sounds fascinating." "How long have you been into it?" This opens the door for them to share more, making the conversation richer.
Moreover, don't shy away from sharing your own experiences, as it helps establish a connection. If they mention a movie they enjoyed, you could say, "I loved that one too. What did you think about the ending?" This encourages dialogue and deepens the conversation.
Absolutely. Remember, small talk at work can foster a collaborative atmosphere, and it's a great way to break the ice with new colleagues. It makes the workplace more enjoyable and can enhance team dynamics.
Next, let's explore how to make small talk with strangers in public places, such as parks, grocery stores, or public transport. This can be both fun and a little nerve-wracking.
Yes, initiating conversation with someone you don't know can feel awkward at first, but often people appreciate the effort. A simple comment like, "The weather is perfect for a walk today, isn't it?" can be a great icebreaker in a park.
Exactly. It's about finding common ground. If you're in a grocery store, you could comment on a popular item, saying something like, "I can't believe how many people are buying this brand of cereal lately." This is relatable and can lead to discussions about food preferences.
And if you're on public transport, starting with a compliment can be a good way to ease into the conversation. You might say, "I love your bag. Where did you get it?" It's flattering and opens the door for a more personal exchange.
Right? And if the other person responds positively, you can delve deeper. Asking, "Are you from around here?" can naturally lead to a conversation about their favorite local spots, which often results in sharing stories and experiences.
It's important to gauge their response, though. If they seem open and engaged, continue the conversation. But if they're giving short answers, it might be best to gracefully end it with a friendly, "Well, enjoy your day."
Exactly. Small talk with strangers can be unpredictable, but it often leads to enjoyable exchanges that brighten your day. Plus, it helps build your confidence in speaking with new people.
Let's discuss cultural differences in small talk. When you meet people from different backgrounds, it's essential to be aware of how small talk might vary.
Absolutely. In some cultures, small talk is very important, while in others, it might be less common or even seen as unnecessary. It's always a good idea to observe and adapt to the social cues of the people around you.
Exactly. For example, in some cultures, it's common to ask about family right away, while in others, that might be considered too personal. Starting with neutral topics, like the weather or the event you're at, is usually a safe bet.
Definitely. And if you're unsure, asking about local customs or traditions can be a good way to engage. You could say, "What's a typical holiday celebration like in your culture?" This shows respect and interest in their background.
Also, be mindful of body language. In some cultures, maintaining eye contact is important, while in others, it might be seen as confrontational. Being aware of these differences can help you navigate conversations smoothly.
And humor can vary widely too. What's funny in one culture might not translate well into another. If you're not sure, it's best to keep humor light and avoid potentially sensitive topics.
Exactly, when in doubt, ask questions that allow others to share their perspectives. This fosters understanding and makes everyone feel included in the conversation. Now, let's focus on how to navigate small talk during professional networking events. These situations can be quite intimidating, but they're also fantastic opportunities to meet new people and expand your professional circle.
Definitely. One effective way to start is by introducing yourself and mentioning your role or what you do. For example, you might say, "Hi, I'm Thomas. I work in digital marketing and I'm really passionate about creating engaging content." This provides a foundation for further discussion.
Exactly, and following up with a question can keep the conversation flowing. Something like, "What about you? What do you enjoy most about your work?" shows that you're interested in the other person and encourages them to share more about themselves.
And don't forget to engage in active listening. Nod, make eye contact, and respond appropriately to what the other person is saying. This not only makes them feel valued, but also helps build rapport.
Absolutely, you might find common ground by discussing mutual acquaintances or recent industry events. For instance, you could say, "I saw that you also attended the recent marketing conference. What did you think of the keynote speaker?" This creates an opportunity for shared experiences.
Great point. It's also beneficial to have a few relevant conversation starters prepared ahead of time. Whether it's about recent trends in your field or upcoming industry events, having these topics in your back pocket can ease any nerves you might have.
Exactly, and don't hesitate to share your own insights and experiences, too. For example, if they mention a challenge they faced, you might say, "I had a similar experience last year, and I found that connecting with a mentor really helped me navigate it." This kind of sharing can deepen the conversation. And remember, if you feel the conversation is coming to a natural end, you can smoothly transition to exchanging contact information. Something like, "I've enjoyed this chat. Would you like to connect on LinkedIn?" can keep the networking going beyond the event. Let's dive into handling awkward silences during small talk. We've all been there, right? Those moments when the conversation seems to hit a wall can be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. One way to overcome this is to have a few go-to topics or questions ready. For instance, you might ask, "What's the most interesting thing you've learned recently?" This question often sparks curiosity and can lead to engaging discussions.
Another approach is to acknowledge the silence lightly. You could say something like, "Well, this is a bit awkward, isn't it? Let's see if we can find something to talk about." This kind of honesty can break the tension and make both parties feel more comfortable. And if you notice the other person isn't as talkative, you could share something about yourself to prompt a response. For example, saying, "I just read an interesting article about the benefits of meditation. Have you ever tried it?" Not only shares a bit about you, but also invites them to share their experiences. Exactly. Sometimes, simply asking for their opinion can reignite the conversation. You might ask, "What do you think about the latest trends in our industry?" This gives them a chance to express their thoughts and can lead to a more dynamic exchange.
Also, remember to keep your body language open and inviting. Smiling, maintaining eye contact, and leaning slightly forward can convey interest and encourage the other person to engage more actively.
And if the conversation doesn't pick up after a few attempts, it's perfectly fine to gracefully exit. You could say, "It was nice meeting you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event." This leaves a positive impression, even if the conversation didn't go as planned.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Learn English with Podcast Conversation. We hope you found our discussion on mastering small talk helpful and engaging. Remember, the skills you've learned today will not only enhance your communication abilities, but also enrich your social interactions.
As you practice these techniques, don't forget that every conversation is an opportunity to connect, learn, and grow. Keep listening, keep speaking, and most importantly, enjoy the process. We look forward to bringing you more insightful discussions in future episodes. Stay curious and see you next time.